Hey everybody, so we're actually up to week 4. I can't believe time is going by so quickly. This week is probably my most exciting week. I actually love quilting. I don't know about you, but something about just machine quilting on my own standard machine that I just really enjoy. And I love seeing that transformation of when just pieced fabric gets quilted. It just, I don't know, transforms everything and just softens everything, and it's really fun. So I hope you will really enjoy this week. So this week I'm going to go over a few different ways that you could quilt this if you wanted to. So I'm going to just give you a couple of design ideas from the very basic up to what I've actually done with my sweatshirt, which is a little bit more time consuming and just gives a little bit more interest if you're really wanting to accentuate the star a little bit more. Of course, however you quilt it is up to you, but just giving you a few little ideas to think about if you want to go those ways. I'll also just give a couple of little tips and tricks in respect to getting that all set up. And before anything, we're going to just double check that our piecing is going to be large enough, or if we need to add any, to fit our template pieces on, which is a real crucial step before we get stuck into the quilting. So enjoy this week and enjoy seeing that evolution of your patchwork becoming quilted. All right, have fun, guys. Before we start any quilting, we want to make sure that all of our fabric panels are the correct size for our pattern pieces. So cut out all your template pieces at the size that you established in week 1. Once they're cut out, grab your fabric panels and lay the pattern pieces on top of these to ensure that there is enough fabric along all sides. You may find you have extra fabric, and this is great as it allows for any shrinkage during quilting. The main thing we're checking is that there's not any edges where there's not enough fabric. If there is, now is the time to be able to add a couple more squares to make sure that you can get your pattern pieces out accurately. Before we go any further, it's time for you to decide which quilting design you want on your hoodie. If you are a beginner, I strongly recommend a diagonal grid all over, as you are seeing now. This will be the simplest and quickest way to quilt your hoodie. If you have a little bit more experience or are keen for a challenge, you might want to accentuate your star a little bit more. You can do this by stitching in the ditch all the way around the star shapes, as I did here. I also did a scallop corner to corner design in all of the high volume pieces on this prototype. Then with all of my low volume pieces, I did a diagonal grid to differentiate between the two zones and give a little bit more pop to the star. This third option, which I have included a diagram for in the newsletter, is what I decided to do with my hoodie for the sew along. This was because I really wanted to accentuate the star a bit more, as my fabrics did not have a high amount of contrast. What I have done is really accentuated the star shapes by echoing them with a matching colour thread. I've also then quilted the remainder of the panel, all directing in towards the star to accentuate it further. And I've used a fairly soft colour that melts more into that background to really differentiate the two areas. Take your chosen fleece or flannel and place this on your work surface, evening it out nice and neatly. Then take one of your fabric panels and place this on top of your batting, making sure that both the layers are sitting smoothly and neatly on top of each other. If you're using a fusible product, now is when you would fuse this in place. However, if you're using a non-fusible product or flannel like I am, before we baste these layers together, we are going to mark out all of our quilting lines, if necessary. Some forms of basic straight line quilting may not require ruled lines, and I'll show you that later with my diagonal grid quilting. But if you feel more comfortable with lines, go ahead and create them no matter your design. Once you've fully ruled out your entire quilted design on each panel, it's time to baste the panel to your interfacing layer. You can choose to do any basting method that you prefer. I chose to do mine with safety pins, but you can choose to hand stitch baste it, to use basting spray if that's a product that you like using, or you could even just use standard pins as it is quite a small panel. Just be careful as you're working. Once you've fully basted your panel, you can now cut out your interfacing layer. Do this approximately 1 inch outside of your fabric edges. Now you're all ready to get quilting. Get your sewing machine all prepped ready for quilting. My first recommendation is using a size 90 quilter's needle, and also to make sure you're always using your walking foot for your machine. Using the correct needle will reduce tension issues, and using a walking foot will ensure a neat, consistent stitch throughout your whole panel. If you have decided to quilt your panels like I did, or with a more detailed design, you might find it easier to work from the inside out. I find that if you start quilting from the centre and work out on all edges, you get a lot less gathering, stretch or puckering. So that might be something to consider. If you are quilting with some form of basic straight line quilting, this really isn't necessary. For my quilt, I've decided to quilt my stars with a different thread than I'm using for the rest of the background of the panels. So here I am quilting my star pieces with a matching blue thread. Now I've used a thread that will stand out a little bit. It is the same colour but slightly bolder, just to make sure that I'm accentuating those star shapes. If you're after a recommendation for quilting thread, I like to use Aurifil in the 40 weight, which is the green spools. I find this is a beautiful weight and sheen of thread to use for quilting. Also, I like to use a slightly longer stitch length. In this case, I used 2.75, but at different times I might go up to 3, just depending on what I am working on. So play with that as you wish. Diagonal grid quilting would be the easiest and quickest method to quilt your Lexi hoodie, and will work for all of the panels. If you're wanting to do that, all you need to do is get your ruler and line the ruler up with the corner points of a diagonal row of squares, just like I'm doing here. So make sure the ruler intersects on every corner of each square. Then you can use a pen to rule that line if you feel more confident working with a line. You do not need a line for this, and I'll demonstrate that later. But here I'm just going to rule a line, rule them all in one direction, and then do the opposite diagonal direction for the remainder of your rows. Again, I'm just marking one here as I'm going to demonstrate that you don't really need a line, but if you are new to quilting, you may want to do the lines just to make sure you're going to go in a straight line. One of the reasons that diagonal grid quilting can be so much easier is that we start our sewing at the edges of our fabric panel, and there's no need to start and finish threads in the middle of our quilted panel. As you can see, I've just there quilted over that first marked line, and now I'm going to show how it's quite easy to do it without a line. All you need to do is think about the next square ahead of you. Don't think of the whole line, just start at the corner of one square and then just work to the opposite corner of that square, only thinking about one square at a time. It's not a large distance, so it is very easy to sew straight from one corner to the next corner, just eyeballing that short distance. To get the neatest result from your diagonal grid quilting, make sure you sew from the top to the bottom and do all the lines in one direction before you go to do the crossing lines. Also, do all of these lines likewise from top to bottom, so that all of your stitching has been in the same direction. Continue to layer, mark, baste and quilt all of your panels till they're all done. Here's my completed pile of panels. I have my hoodie gusset. I have the panel for my 2 hoodie sides. Both of those I've done with the diagonal grid for demonstration purposes, since I won't be doing a hood with my sweatshirt. I then have both of my sleeves, which have been quilted in the same way as I showed close up for my hoodie front and hoodie back. I have made sure I have reflected the blue parts of the star with blue thread and the green half of the star with green thread. And here is my hoodie front panel with my blue star, and I also have my hoodie back panel which has the green star. So that's it for week 4, guys. I hope you've really enjoyed doing all of that quilting. I hope that you're even more enjoying looking at it and seeing all of your panels and imagining that hoodie or sweatshirt that is to come, which actually is to come next week. So next week, super exciting. Next week, we're actually doing the clothing construction. So we're going to be cutting those pieces up. We're going to be making it into a hoodie or sweatshirt and finally getting to fit it on, see how it looks, see how it feels, and just really enjoy those end results. So rest up. Make sure you get a good massage in the neck and back after all of that quilting, and get ready and raring for next week because it's going to be a big one and an exciting one. All right, have a good time, guys. See ya.